Hi, this is Ginny Hooper again. We're going to take another look at a yard that's in transition. This yard is in Stansbury in Tooele County. Now, traditionally, Stansbury has a high water table. There's natural springs here, but there are several, because it's expanding, there are several homes that need to transition to a low water use landscape design. And this is a good example of somebody who's done a fabulous job of working in some design elements to making the yard more usable, but still have it be beautiful. And I kind of wanted to point out, just take a look here at the colors. This is a good example as we walk through of a plant design and hardscape design that has monochromatic color value. So that's the kind of, on the color wheel, these colors are next to each other. So we have pinks and burgundies and purples and oranges, and warm colors in these tones. And this was done on purpose because the client here, the homeowner, really loves Arizona. And she really wanted to have that reflected in the aesthetic here. So we're going to take a look at the hardscape, how it ties together with the rock mulches. For those of you who are localscapes fans, this is a really good example of somebody who decreased their water bill and was able to decrease the amount of grass basically in the yard into a usable space. And then we have a lot of yummy drought-tolerant plants we can look at too. All right, let's take a look at some of those yummy plants I was talking about. I'll try and refrain from actually eating them and eating the leaves. But one of those is one of my favorites. This is a young baby plant that was planted 4 years ago, five weeks ago. Sorry, my homeowner is giving me the cues here. So this is a desert willow, Chalopsis linearis, and Cameron can't keep these in stock at the nursery. They are so gorgeous. This is little. Give it a few years, it's gonna be 10 feet tall, 12 feet tall and wide and have this beautiful leafy ferny foliage on it. And the blooms, if you can come up and get a close shot, they're like bells. They almost look like, John says they look like irises. They have a lot of neat coloring in the throat, but they hang and they're profusely, they're on every stem. So when they flower, they're just stunning. All right, so here's another beautiful daisy-looking plant. This is a Marguerite daisy. This is a drought-tolerant daisy that holds its form together really well. It stays compact, unlike our friend the Shasta daisy, which is kind of a heritage plant. Everybody used to grow Shastas when I was in the 80s, and they bloom, they're gorgeous, and then they just flop over, and they take a ton of water. So this is a great substitution for those that want to transition with the same look with a lot less water required. There's a cactus garden in the center with some agave and yuccas. We have some New Mexico privet. Another plant that I love, this is used a lot now. Utah's caught on to it. This is the Grollo sumac, the Rus trilobata. In the wild, it gets about this tall and it turns scarlet red or orange in the fall. So it's a beautiful addition to your garden where you can let it spread. A lot of commercial properties will plant this and they'll plant them closer together. And so they just kind of take over as a green carpet. And then they end up mowing them maybe once or twice during the season to keep them smaller. I think this looks its best when it just is allowed to grow and do what it's doing right here. And it's a great way to keep down the weeds. Here we have another desert willow that's on its way. We've got traditional lilac. This was here in the beginning. This was one of the mature trees, or shrubs, I should say, that we decided to keep in the design because it gives a sense of permanence to the yard when you have all these new babies growing. It's okay to keep something that's old so that you have a little substance here and there. And let's talk about these pine trees over here. I'm going to walk around this way. There's fun footpath to the raised garden bed section. And then some eye-catching ornamentals with the ornamental grasses. And to remind me which kind of Austrian pine these are. Don't remember? Okay, so this is one of your compact varieties, and Cameron will tell you what exactly. They come in so many different varieties. Sometimes I tend to forget which is which, but this is one that's not going to get 40 feet tall and 20 feet wide. They stay put. They adapt well to the soil. They like alkaline soil. It doesn't bother them. And they have this really nice vertical structure that is a nice contrast against some of the other plants, like the low-growing junipers underneath it. This is one of my favorites. A lot of people are afraid to plant magnolias. So those of you who wonder what that has to do with the Arizona landscape, this is an Alexander magnolia that has a beautiful lime green foliage and a cup-shaped flower about the size of my fist. And it can take full sun. For the most part, they tolerate our soils, but this is where you're going to get that tropical bloom that grows in Arizona that you can't get here. So planting things like mallow or rose of Sharon can also give you that tropical bloom when you're trying to do something xeric, but you don't live in a tropical area. So I wanted to mention a few more treasures that Marie has growing in her yard that are uncommon for this far north in the state of Utah. One of them has to do, here's a hint, with my favorite band, U2. Several of you know the album Joshua Tree. If you look over here on the far left, and the camera's left, you can see the wide leaf plant there at the end of this mound. That's a Joshua tree. It's a baby. This entire landscape is now about 4 years old back here, to give you an idea of where Marie's at in the process of getting things going. You can see there's some baby hedgehog cactus, some baby blue fescue, and a bunch of other things. And there's remind me the one in the middle. It's unusual. The sodal. The sodal's in the middle of this mound. And then to kind of add some other texture there, she has some ornamental grasses. And then we have another fun agave down here. It's kind of a yellowy green. And one of my favorite plants around the corner, so you take note of these concentric circles. This was all part of the design. I love geometry. It's fun when it comes together. And Marie's yard was on the garden tour this year, in case you missed it. The Tooele Master Gardeners, Tooele County Master Gardeners Gardener Tour. It's a mouthful for me, and I probably repeated that wrong 5 times. But she was on the garden tour this year. We had a great turnout, and she said a lot of people were interested in these 3 plants over here on the end because they have a ferny texture, they have a white blossom, and then they have these little plumes, kind of like a smoke bush. And it's not smoke bush, it's a xeric plant, a native called the patchy plume. It's gorgeous. Progressive Plants grows these. And they're part of the native landscape out there at the nursery. So you can see them in their mature state as they would be in the wild. One of my favorite plants, way underused. They bloom all summer long too. The plant goes through cycles where it will get a bunch of white blooms, and then you get the airy, ferny wisps, and then you get new growth in the center, and the older growth tends to lay down a little more, but they usually hold their shape all summer long and into the fall.